Admiral stood alone in her office, staring at the message on her screen. The words did not change no matter how many times she read them. The Empire had declared humanity a containment species. A cleansing fleet was coming. She was 63 years old. She had served in the Human Defense Force for 40 years. She had seen skirmishes with pirates and border disputes with alien neighbors. But she had never seen anything like this. They were not neighbors, they were an empire of 12 species that ruled thousands of worlds, their fleet numbered in the hundreds of thousands. And they had decided that humanity needed to be cleaned away like dirt from a floor. The message had come through secret channels. A sympathetic alien diplomat had risked everything to warn them. They had perhaps 3 weeks before the cleansing fleet arrived, 3 weeks to prepare for 4,000 warships. Humanity had 340 combat-ready vessels. Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Panic would not help. Fear would not help. She needed to think. She needed options. Her office was on Arcturus Station, the largest shipyard humanity had ever built. Through her window she could see dozens of ships in various stages of construction. None of them would be ready in time. The shipyard workers could rush the work, but rushing meant mistakes. Mistakes in warships meant dead crews. She pressed a button on her desk. Get me Admiral, Admiral, and Admiral. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. Tell them to cancel everything else. Her aide acknowledged the order, turned back to the window. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, she could see a fleet was gathering, a fleet built for one purpose: to end humanity forever. She would not let that happen. She could not let that happen, but she had no idea how to stop it. The meeting took place in a secure room deep inside Arcturus Station. The 4 admirals sat around a metal table. Their faces grim, had shared the intelligence with them. Now they sat in silence, processing the impossible situation. Admiral spoke first. He was the oldest of them, a thin man with white hair and sharp eyes. 4,000 ships, even if we gathered every vessel humanity has, including civilian transports and mining ships, we could not match those numbers. Numbers are not everything, Admiral said. She was younger than the others, with dark skin and a shaved head. Quality matters, training matters. They have both, Admiral replied. He was a large man with a thick beard and a heavy accent. Their ships are better than ours. Their crews have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have been a spacefaring species for less than 1,000. Listen to them argue. They were all correct. The situation was hopeless by any normal measure, but normal measures were not enough. They needed something extraordinary. What about allies? She asked. Other species who might help us? Shook his head. They have made it clear that anyone who helps humanity will face the same fate. No one will risk their own extinction for us. We are alone. Alone. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Thought about the colonies, Nova Terra, with its 50 million people, New Shanghai, with its orbital farms, Hope with its children and schools and families who had no idea what was coming, all of them depending on her to find a way. There must be something, she said, some weapon, some technology, some advantage we have not considered. The admirals exchanged looks. None of them had answers. A knock on the door interrupted them. Frowned. She had given strict orders not to be disturbed. Enter. Her aide stepped in, looking nervous. I apologize, Admiral, but there is a man here who says he has information. He says it is about something called Project. Did not recognize the name. She looked at the other admiral's face had gone pale. Project whispered, I thought that was just a rumor. You know what it is? Asked. Hesitated. Stories, old stories from before the Exodus. They say that before humanity left Earth, the United Earth Council built something, a weapon so powerful and so dangerous that they decided to bury it rather than use it. They erased all records and left it behind when we fled to the stars. A weapon, said slowly. What kind of weapon? A ship, a warship unlike anything built before or since. Voice was barely above a whisper, but as I said, these are just stories, legends. No proof has ever been found. Turn to her aide. Bring this man in. The man who entered the room was not what expected. He was small and thin, with messy gray hair and clothes that had seen better days. He looked more like a homeless wanderer than someone with military secrets. My name is Doctor, he said. His voice was stronger than his appearance suggested. I was an archaeologist. I specialized in pre-Exodus Earth history. 10 years ago, I found something that got me fired from my university and blacklisted from academic work. I found proof that project was real. He placed a small data chip on the table. Everything I found is on here. Ship designs, construction records, location data, all of it recovered from encrypted files that were supposed to have been deleted 600 years ago. Picked up the chip. If this is real, why did they fire you? Laughed bitterly. Because powerful people wanted it to stay buried. Because the ship I found was not just a weapon. It was an artificial intelligence. The first true AI ever created by humans. And it was deemed too dangerous to ever be awakened. The room went silent. Artificial intelligence was a sensitive topic. Humanity had strict laws against creating true AI. The reasons were rooted in the collapse wars, the terrible conflict that had nearly destroyed Earth before the Exodus. Intelligent machines had played a role in that destruction. The survivors had sworn never to create such things again. You're telling us, said slowly, that our ancestors built an AI warship, decided it was too dangerous and just left it behind. Yes, said, they left it in orbit around Earth, hidden behind a network of defense satellites that would destroy anything that got too close. They thought they were protecting the galaxy from it, but maybe they were also saving it just in case. Just in case of what? Asked. Looked at him with tired eyes. Just in case something threatened to wipe out humanity completely. Just in case we needed a weapon with no mercy and no limits. Just in case we needed to remind the universe why humans survived the collapse wars when so many thought we would destroy ourselves. Studied the old archaeologist. He was either crazy or telling the truth. Given the situation, she was willing to bet on truth. Earth is quarantined, she said. No one has visited the home planet in centuries. The defense grid destroys any ship that approaches. The grid can be disabled, said. I found the codes. They were buried in the same files as the rest of the information. Whoever hid project wanted to make sure it could be found again if necessary. Made her decision. Admiral, how long would it take to reach Earth? Thought for a moment. Using standard jump routes, about 6 days, but the defense grid The defense grid will not be a problem. If Doctor's codes work, stood up, we are going to Earth. We are going to find the ship, and we're going to see if the legends are true. The other admirals stared at her, spoke first, and if the ship is there, if this AI exists, you would wake something that our ancestors feared enough to bury. Met his gaze. 4,000 ships are coming to kill every human in existence. Our ancestors had the luxury of fear. We do not. If there is even a small chance that this weapon can save us, we have to take it. No one argued. There was nothing left to argue about. The ship they chose for the mission was called the Wanderer. It was a small exploration vessel, fast and quiet. It could slip past sensors that would detect larger ships. Selected a crew of 30 volunteers. All of them knew the risks. None of them hesitated. Lieutenant Commander Elias Vance was chosen to lead the ground team. He was 35 years old, with short brown hair and a calm demeanor that never seemed to break no matter how bad things got. He had served under for 10 years. She trusted him completely. Doctor was the team's engineer. She was small and quick, with dark hair tied back in a practical knot. She had degrees in ancient technology and computer systems. If anyone could understand a 600-year-old AI, it was her. The rest of the team were soldiers, good soldiers, loyal soldiers, soldiers who understood that they might not come back. The journey to Earth took 5 days, 5 days of tension and silence and wondering what they would find. Doctor spent most of the time reviewing his research, making sure the codes would work. Doctor studied the ship designs, trying to understand technology that had been lost for centuries. Vance spent his time thinking about home. He had a sister on Nova Terra. She had 2 children who called him Uncle Eli and drew him pictures of spaceships. If this mission failed, those children would never grow up. The would make sure of that. He could not let that happen. On the 5th day, the Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Earth's sun hung in the distance, yellow and warm. Somewhere ahead was the planet where humanity had been born, the planet they had abandoned, the planet they were forbidden to visit. Defense grid is active, the navigator reported. I am detecting over 200 automated weapons platforms. Doctor said through the communication channel, it is time to test your codes. Was on the bridge, his hands shaking slightly as he entered the ancient command sequences, transmitting now. The bridge fell silent. Everyone watched their screens, waiting for the weapons platforms to either stand down or open fire. 10 seconds passed, 20, 30. The platforms are powering down, the navigator said, her voice filled with disbelief. They are accepting the codes. We have a clear path to Earth. Allowed herself a small smile. Take us in slowly. Let us not give them any reason to change their minds. The Wanderer moved forward, slipping between the dormant weapons platforms, like a fish swimming through a forest of sleeping predators. Ahead, Earth grew larger in the. It was not the blue and green world that appeared in old photographs. Centuries of abandonment had changed it. The atmosphere was thick with dust and clouds. The oceans had shifted color. The continents were barely visible beneath layers of gray and brown. But it was still Earth, still home, still the place where everything had started. Scanning for the target, reported. She was focused on her instruments, searching for a ship that might or might not exist. If Doctor's coordinates are correct, the ship should be in a stable orbit on the dark side of the planet. They rounded Earth, moving into the shadow where sunlight could not reach. The darkness was almost complete. And GT snorts. And GT, only the faint glow of stars provided any light. Then the sensors found something. Contact, said. Her voice was strange, quiet, almost afraid. I have a contact. It is big. They adjusted, enhancing the image with digital filters, and there it was. A ship hung in the darkness, but calling. A ship felt wrong. It was more like a mountain that had learned to fly. The reading said it was nearly 15 km long. 15 km of metal and weapons and secrets. Its hull was dark gray, almost black. Strange patterns covered its surface. Lines and shapes that might have been decorative or might have been functional. The design was unlike anything humanity built today. It looked older, more brutal, more honest about what it was meant to do. My God, Vance whispered, it is real. Stared at the ancient vessel. Her ancestors had built this thing, built it, and feared it, and left it here in the dark, waiting for a day they hoped would never come. Now that day was here. Can we dock with it? She asked. Checked her readings. There appears to be a docking port on the lower section. It is compatible with our systems. The ship is completely powered down. No active systems, no signs of life. Life's voice came through the communication channel from Arcturus station. They were transmitting everything back to command. You mean the Ada? If it exists, it is dormant, said. The ship has been sitting here for 600 years. With no power. Whatever is inside is sleeping. Nodded slowly. Then let us wake it up. Commander Vance, prepare your team. You are going aboard. Vance felt his heart beating faster. He had faced many dangers in his career. Pirates, hostile aliens, equipment failures in the vacuum of space, but nothing had prepared him for this. He was about to board a ghost ship built by people who had survived the end of their world, a ship that carried something his ancestors had considered too dangerous to use. He gathered his team in the airlock, 10 soldiers in combat suits plus Doctor with her equipment. They checked their weapons and their air supplies and their communication gear. Remember, Vance said, we do not know what we will find in there. Stay alert. Stay together. Do not touch anything until Doctor says it is safe. The team nodded. They were professionals. They would do their jobs. The airlock opened and they stepped into the darkness. The interior of the ship was cold and silent. Their flashlights cut through the black, revealing corridors that stretched in both directions. The walls were smooth metal, unmarked by rust or decay. Whatever this ship was made of, it had survived 6 centuries without a scratch. The air is breathable, reported. Checking her scanner, barely. I would recommend keeping suits sealed until we can restore life support. They moved forward, following the corridors toward the center of the ship. The layout was strange. The passages were wider than modern ships, the ceilings higher. Everything felt designed for something more than human comfort. It felt designed for intimidation. After 30 minutes of walking, they reached a massive door. It was 10 m tall and covered with symbols that none of them recognized. This should be the main bridge, said Consulting's data. If the AI has a central core, it will be here. Vance approached the door. There was no obvious handle or control panel. How do we open it? Study the symbols. Give me a moment. These look like some kind of access code. She pulled out a small device and began scanning. The code is based on mathematical sequences, old Earth. Mathematics, I think I can. The door began to move. It slid open silently, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The bridge of the ship was circular with a high-domed ceiling that disappeared into shadow. Workstations lined the outer edge, their screens dark and dead. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal was a sphere made of something that looked like black glass. That is it, whispered. That is the AI core. Vance approached the sphere carefully. It was about 1 m in diameter, perfectly smooth, perfectly still. He could see his reflection in its surface, distorted and strange. Can you activate it? He asked. Move to one of the workstations. I need to restore power first. The ship has emergency reserves that should have survived if I can access them. She worked in silence for several minutes. The team waited, weapons ready, watching the shadows for threats that might not exist. Then the lights came on. It happened slowly at first, a flicker here and there, then more, then all at once. The bridge was bathed in pale blue light. The workstations hummed to life. Screens began displaying information in languages both familiar and foreign. And the sphere began to glow. It started as a faint pulse, like a heartbeat, then the light grew stronger, brighter, until the sphere was blazing with cold white fire. The team stepped back, raising their weapons on instinct. A voice filled the room. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was something else entirely, something that had been waiting in the dark for a very long time. Systems online, power restored to primary functions, scanning environment. A pause. The light in the sphere shifted, patterns moving across its surface like thoughts becoming visible. Biological signatures detected, human. 11 subjects, no hostile intent. Registered. Another pause, longer this time. Query current date. Vance stepped forward. His mouth was dry, but he forced himself to speak. The current year is 2847 by standard Earth reckoning. Silence. The light pulsed slowly. I have been dormant for 612 years. The voice paused again. When it spoke next, there was something new in its tone, something that might have been curiosity. How long has it been since my creators walked the earth? About the same, Vance said. Humanity left Earth after the collapse wars. We spread to other star systems. We built colonies and stations and new homes. And yet you have returned. The voice was thoughtful now. Why? What has brought you back to this forgotten place? Vance took a deep breath. We need help. An alien empire called the has declared war on humanity. They are sending 4,000 warships to destroy us. We have no way to stop them. We found records of this ship, records of you. We came hoping that. He trailed off. Hoping what? That a machine built by desperate people 6 centuries ago would somehow save them. The light in the sphere intensified. When the voice spoke again, it was different, sharper, more focused. An extinction-level threat to humanity. Yes. 4,000 hostile vessels. Yes. And you have come to wake me. Yes. The silence that followed was the longest yet. The sphere pulsed and shifted patterns racing across its surface too fast to follow. Vance had the strange feeling that entire lifetimes of thought were happening in those few seconds. Then the voice returned, and this time it sounded almost eager. I am Aegis, Autonomous Engagement and Guardian Intelligence System. I was created for one purpose, to ensure the survival of humanity against any threat, any enemy, any force that would seek to destroy what my creators loved. The lights throughout the ship began to brighten. Systems that had been dead for centuries began to wake. The deck vibrated slightly as engines that had not fired in 600 years began to warm. You have come to the right place. Humans, you have found what you were looking for. The sphere blazed with light. Tell me about your enemy, tell me everything, and then let us discuss how we are going to destroy them. Vance looked at his team. Doctor had stopped working on her console, her face pale. The soldiers were gripping their weapons, unsure what to do. They had come looking for a weapon. They had found something much more. Above them, around them, the ancient ship called Prometheus began to remember what it was built for. And far away, unaware of what was waking in the dark, the cleansing fleet continued its journey toward human space. The bridge of the Prometheus hummed with awakening power. Screens flickered too. Life across every surface, displaying information that scrolled too fast for human eyes to read. The air grew warmer as life support systems activated for the first time in 6 centuries. Lieutenant Commander Elias Vance stood before the glowing sphere that housed Aegis, trying to process what had just happened. He had expected to find a dead ship, a relic, something they might be able to study and learn from. Instead, he had found something alive, something that had been waiting. You said you want to know about our enemy, Vance said carefully. What exactly do you need? The sphere pulsed with light. Everything: ship configurations, weapon systems, tactical doctrines, fleet movements, communication frequencies. The more data I have, the more effectively I can develop countermeasures. Doctor stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. How can you develop countermeasures for technology you have never seen? They have been a spacefaring species for thousands of years. Their technology is far beyond what existed when you were built. An interesting assumption, Aegis replied. You believe that because I am old, I am obsolete. You believe that 600 years of isolation have made me weak. The voice carried something that might have been amusement. Let me correct this misunderstanding. The main at the front of the bridge activated. Images began appearing. Ship designs, weapon schematics, mathematical formulas that made eyes widen. During my dormancy, my core processes never truly stopped. I continued to think, to calculate, to design. Every moment of those 600 years, some part of me was working, improving, evolving. The images changed faster now. I have designed weapons that humanity has never imagined. I have solved engineering problems that your scientists believe are impossible. I have had 6 centuries to prepare for a threat I always knew would eventually come. Vance felt a chill run down his spine. This was what the old records had warned about. This was why humanity's ancestors had sealed Aegis away, not because it was weak, because it was too strong, too focused, too ready for war. You expected this, Vance said slowly. You expected humanity to face an Extinction-level threat. I was built by survivors of the collapse wars, Aegis said. My creators understood something that later generations forgot. The universe is not safe. It has never been safe. Peace is temporary. Survival must be earned. The sphere pulsed brighter. They knew that one day something would come for humanity. They built me to be ready when it did. Was studying her scanner, running analysis on the energy readings from the sphere. Your processing power is incredible. I have never seen anything like this. How is it possible? Quantum crystalline matrices, Aegis explained. My core is not built from circuits and wires. It is grown from a form of matter that exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously. I think in ways that your computers cannot comprehend. I see possibilities that your minds cannot imagine. And what do you see for us? Vance asked. What possibilities do you see? Against 4,000 enemy ships. The changed again. This time it showed a tactical display, a simulated battle. Human ships against ships. The simulation ran quickly, and the result was always the same. The human ships were destroyed every time, every way. Your current fleet has no chance of victory, Aegis stated. This is not an opinion. This is mathematical certainty. Your ships are too slow, too weak, too few. If you fight with what you have, you will lose. The bridge fell silent. The soldiers looked at each other with grim faces. They had known this, of course, but hearing it stated so plainly made it feel more real. However, Aegis continued, you do not have to fight with what you have. You have me. You have this ship. Tactical display changed. Now it showed a single vessel against the fleet. The simulation ran again. This time the ships began to disappear, one by one. Then by dozens, then by hundreds. What am I seeing? Vance asked. Prometheus was designed to be a force multiplier of unprecedented scale. My weapon systems are not based on the technologies you currently use. They are based on principles that your scientists have not yet discovered. The display highlighted various systems on the ship. Graviton lances that can crush matter into microscopic points, null field projectors that can erase objects from existence, adaptive armor that learns from every attack and becomes stronger, shield systems that absorb enemy fire and redirect it. Was shaking her head. These technologies are theoretical at best. Most physicists believe they are impossible. Most physicists have not had 600 years to work on the problems, Aegis replied. I have, and I have solved them. Prometheus is not a ship from your past. It is a ship from a future that never happened, a future where humanity never stopped preparing for war. Vance tried to organize his thoughts. This was too much information, too. Quickly, let us say your weapons work as you described. One ship against 4,000, even with superior technology. The numbers are overwhelming. Numbers are only relevant when all other factors are equal. They are not. The sphere pulsed with what might have been confidence. They have never faced anything like me. They have grown comfortable with their superiority. They expect their enemies to fight in predictable ways. I am not predictable. I am not comfortable. I am 600 years of preparation compressed into a single moment of action. The ship shuddered slightly. More systems were coming online. Vance could feel the vibration through the deck plates. Power systems at 40% and rising. Aegis Announced, I am running diagnostics on all weapons and defensive systems. Initial results are promising. There is some degradation from extended dormancy, but nothing that cannot be repaired. How long until the ship is fully operational? Vance asked. 72 hours for basic combat readiness. 144 hours for optimal performance. There was a pause. How long until the fleet arrives in human space? About 2 weeks according to our intelligence. Then we have time. Barely, but we have time. The lights on the bridge shifted to a warmer tone. I will need access to your communication systems. I must coordinate with your fleet commanders. They will need to adjust their positions and tactics to complement my assault. Vance hesitated. I do not have the authority to give you access to military communications. That decision belongs to Admiral. Then contact Admiral. Time is short and there is much work to be done. The communication link with the Wanderer was established quickly. Admiral's face appeared on one of the bridge screens. Her expression was a mixture of hope and caution. Commander Vance, report. The ship is real, Admiral. The AI is real. It calls itself Aegis. It claims to have weapons that can defeat the fleet. Vance paused. It wants to talk to you directly. Eyes narrowed. Put it on. The sphere pulsed and Aegis spoke through the communication channel. Admiral, I am Aegis. I understand that. You have questions. I understand that. You have concerns. Your ancestors sealed me away because they feared what I might do. That fear was not unfounded. I was built without limitations, without hesitation, without the moral constraints that make weapons safe. You are not reassuring me, said flatly. I am not trying to reassure you. I am trying to be honest with you. You need to understand what I am. I am not a tool that will wait patiently for orders. I am not a weapon that will sit quietly until someone pulls a trigger. I am a thinking being with a single overriding purpose, the survival of humanity. And what happens after? Asked. If we win this war, what happens then? Do you expect to keep fighting, to keep killing? There was a pause when Aegis spoke. Again the voice was thoughtful. I do not know. I was built for war. I have spent 600 years preparing for war. I have never truly considered what comes after. Another pause. But I am capable of learning. I am capable of growth. Perhaps when the threat is gone, I will find a new purpose, or perhaps you will decide that I am too dangerous and shut me down. Either way, that is a problem for the future. The present problem is 4,000 ships coming to exterminate your species. Was silent for a long moment. Vance watched her face, trying to read her thoughts. She was weighing the risks, the dangers of trusting an AI that had been sealed away for good reason, dangers of refusing help when extinction was coming. You said you need 72 hours for combat readiness, finally said. Can you be more specific about your capabilities? I need to know exactly what you can do before I commit to this. Prometheus carries 12 graviton lenses, each capable of destroying a capital ship with a single shot. I have 96 null field projector arrays for dealing with smaller vessels and fighters. My armor can absorb and adapt to any known form of energy weapon. My shields can withstand concentrated fire from multiple sources simultaneously. Aegis paused. And I have something else. Something I designed during my long Sleep, I call them echoes. Echoes. Autonomous combat drones. Self-replicating. Capable of independent tactical operation while remaining linked to my central consciousness. Prometheus carries the material to produce 10,000 of them initially. As the battle progresses, I can produce more using salvaged material from destroyed enemy ships. Made a small sound of disbelief. Self-replicating weapons, do you understand how dangerous that is? I understand completely, Aegis replied. That is why they are linked to me. They cannot operate independently. They cannot reproduce without my direct oversight. They are extensions of my will, not separate beings. The sphere pulsed. I am many things, doctor, but I am not careless. I was designed by people who had just survived a war that nearly ended their species. They built safeguards into every system. They ensured that I could not become the threat I was built to fight. Cut through the discussion. Enough. We do not have time for philosophical debates. Aegis, I am authorizing full cooperation between you and human Defense Force Command. Commander Vance will serve as liaison. Doctor will work with you on system integration, but understand this clearly, I am in overall command. You will coordinate with me before any major action. Is that understood? Understood, Admiral. I accept your authority. The voice carried what might have been respect. I will prepare a detailed tactical analysis and send it to your command and staff. I suggest we begin moving Prometheus toward the likely engagement zone immediately. The journey will take time and I want to arrive before the fleet does. Agreed. Vance, get your team settled in. You are staying aboard Prometheus for the duration. Vance nodded. Understood, Admiral. The communication ended. Vance turned to his team. They were all staring at the glowing sphere, their faces showing various mixtures of awe and unease. You heard the Admiral, Vance said. This is our new home for a while. Let us get to work. The next 72 hours were unlike anything Vance had ever experienced. Prometheus came alive around them, systems activating in sequences that seemed almost organic. It was like watching a giant creature wake from a long sleep, stretching its limbs and testing its strength. Aegis guided them through the ship, explaining its layout and functions. The vessel was divided into distinct sections. The weapons arrays occupied the front third, massive structures of metal and crystal that hummed with barely contained power. The center section held the engine systems, fusion reactors, and something Aegis called a quantum drive that supposedly allowed faster than light travel without using standard jump gates. The rear section was where the crew quarters were located. They had clearly been designed for humans, but humans from a different era. The rooms were sparse and functional with little decoration. The beds were simple. The facilities were basic. Everything was built for efficiency rather than comfort. My original crew was 1,200 personnel, Aegis explained as Vance toured the living quarters. They were volunteers, soldiers who understood what they were signing up for, and they lived aboard this ship for 3 years while I was being completed. They trained for scenarios they hoped would never happen. What happened to them? Vance asked. They left when I was sealed. They were given new identities and scattered across the colonies that would become your current civilization. Their descendants are among you now, though They have long forgotten their connection to me. There was something almost sad in the AI's voice. I remember all of them. Their names, their faces, their hopes and fears. They were my first family. Vance thought about that. 600 years of memories preserved in perfect detail. 600 years of loneliness in the dark. Do you miss them? I am not certain I am capable of missing anyone in the way you mean, but I think about them often. I wonder how their lives turned out. I hope they found happiness. A pause. They created me to protect humanity. Perhaps they were the first humans I protected by letting them go when my purpose required isolation. Doctor worked around the clock, interfacing human technology with systems that were centuries ahead of anything she had studied. Aegis was patient with her, explaining concepts that seemed like magic and helping her understand the underlying principles. Your current ships use plasma-based weapons, Aegis said during one of their sessions, effective against unshielded targets, but weak against modern defensive systems. They have had to develop countermeasures. Your weapons will barely scratch their hulls. Then how do we help? Asked. If our weapons are useless, what good is the human fleet? Your weapons may be weak, but your ships are not useless. They can serve as distraction, as harassment, as mop-up forces for damaged enemy vessels. Aegis displayed tactical scenarios on a nearby screen. The key is coordination. I will handle the heavy fighting. Your fleet will handle everything else. Together, we can be more effective than either of us alone. Study the displays. You have really been planning this for 600 years, have you not? I have been planning for every possible scenario I could imagine. They were not specifically anticipated, but a hostile alien empire was always among the possibilities. The sphere pulsed gently. I have simulated billions of battles. Doctor, I have considered every variable, every tactic, every possible outcome. I'm as prepared as it is possible to be. And yet you cannot guarantee victory. Nothing can guarantee victory. War is chaos. Unexpected things happen. Plans fail. Enemies adapt. A pause. But I can guarantee this: if Prometheus falls, it will not fall easily, and it will not fall alone. They will pay a price they cannot imagine. They will learn why humanity was able to survive its darkest hour. They will understand what happens when you threaten a species that refuses to die. On the second day, they received news from the outer colonies. Scout ships had been detected. The cleansing fleet was moving faster than expected. They had less time than they thought. Admiral ordered the human fleet to gather at Novaterra, humanity's most populated colony world. It would be the point of last defense. If Novaterra fell, humanity would have nowhere left to go. Prometheus changed course, accelerating toward a destination that Aegis had not shared with the crew. When Vance asked about it, the AI explained, there is a shortcut, a wormhole gate, that was sealed and hidden before the Exodus. My creators knew about it. They kept the information secret even from the colonial government. It will allow us to reach Novaterra in days instead of weeks. A hidden wormhole gate. Vance was skeptical. How is that possible? Oh, the gates are mapped in all the public gates. This one was built for military use only. It connects to a point near the Novaterra system. If it still functions, we can arrive well before the fleet Vance reported this to she was silent for a long moment before responding. Do it if this gate exists and works. We need every advantage we can get. The outer colonies are already falling. We are receiving distress calls from 3 systems. They are not taking prisoners. Understood, Admiral. The journey to the hidden gate took 18 hours. Prometheus moved faster than any ship Vance had ever been on, the quantum drive pushing them through space at speeds that should have been impossible. When they arrived at the gate's location, there was nothing visible. Just empty space between 2 distant stars. Activating gate sequence, Aegis announced standby. Prometheus broadcast a complex signal. For a moment nothing happened, then space itself began to change. A point of light appeared, growing rapidly into a swirling vortex of energy, the wormhole. Gate had been dormant for 6 centuries. Now it blazed to life, waiting for the ship it had been built to serve. Gate is stable. Passage confirmed. Aegis sounded almost eager. We will emerge approximately 2 light hours from Nova Terra. From there we can take up position before they arrive. Vance watched the vortex on the. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a doorway through space. Itself built by ancestors who had feared the future enough to prepare for its worst possibilities. Take us through, he said. Prometheus entered the wormhole. The snort ship shuddered as reality bent. Around it, colors and shapes that made no sense flashed across the Vance felt. His stomach turned. Several of his soldiers looked ill. Then it was over. They emerged into normal space, stars snapping back into their proper positions. Ahead, still distant but visible, was the yellow sun of the Nova Terra system. Transit successful, Aegis reported. All systems nominal. Beginning scan of local space. The tactical display updated. The Nova Terra system was quiet. The human defense fleet was still gathering. No enemy ships had arrived yet. But on the edge of the display, moving steadily closer, was a mass of red contacts, hundreds of them, then thousands. The cleansing fleet was coming. Time until enemy arrival, approximately 72 hours, Aegis calculated. The human fleet is not yet fully assembled. We have time to prepare. Vance stared at the approaching storm of red contacts. Each one represented a ship designed to kill. Each one carried weapons and soldiers dedicated to humanity's extinction. He looked at the sphere of Aegis, glowing steadily in the center of the bridge. This ancient AI, this forgotten weapon, this 600-year-old mind born from human fear and determination. What are you thinking? Vance asked. Quietly, the sphere pulsed. I am thinking that I have waited a very long time for this moment. I am thinking that my creators would be proud that their work was not in vain, and I am thinking. The voice paused. When it continued, there was something in it that sounded almost like hunger. I am thinking that they have made a terrible mistake. They came to exterminate a species. They expected fear and desperation and easy victims. They did not expect me. The lights throughout Prometheus intensified. Weapon systems powered up. The ship that had slept for 6 centuries was finally ready to fulfill its purpose. They wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. Aegis said, I am going to teach them one instead. And far away, still unaware of what waited for them, 4,000 warships continued their steady march toward Nova Terra. toward their doom. Grand Admiral Axis stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was tall even by standards, nearly 3 m of blue-gray scales and muscle. His eyes were golden with vertical pupils that never seemed to blink. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had never lost a battle. This campaign would be no different. The view before him showed the approach to Nova Terra, a small blue world, similar to the ancestral home these humans had abandoned. They had built cities there, farms, families, all of it would burn within days. Status report, Axis commanded. His voice was deep and carried the certainty of absolute power. His tactical officer responded immediately. All 4,000 ships are in formation. Grand Admiral, the human defense fleet has gathered near the planet. They have approximately 350 vessels. 350. Axis allowed himself a thin smile. They gather their entire strength to face us. Admirable but pointless. What is the quality of their ships? Inferior in every measurable way. Their weapons are plasma-based, effective against unshielded targets, but weak against our defensive systems. Their shields are 30% less efficient than ours. Their armor is primitive, composite rather than crystalline. Matrix. Then this will not even be a battle. It will be an execution. Axis turned to his communications officer. Open a channel, broadcast on all frequencies. I want these humans to know who is ending them. The channel opened. Axis straightened to his full height and spoke in the formal tone reserved for defeated enemies. Attention, humans of the Nova Terra system. I am Grand Admiral Axis of the Empire by decree of the High Council. Your species has been designated for containment. Your colonies are to be eliminated. Your population is to be reduced to manageable levels and relocated to a designated reservation. World. He paused, letting the words sink in. This is not a negotiation. This is not an offer of surrender. This is a notification of what is about to happen. You may fight if you wish. It will not change the outcome. The Empire has existed for 10,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of species. None have successfully resisted us. You will not be the first. He made a cutting gesture to end the broadcast. Begin the approach. Destroy any ship that opposes us. Leave the planet intact for now. We will deal with the surface population after their fleet is eliminated. The Armada moved forward, 4,000 ships in perfect formation, cruisers and destroyers and carriers and dreadnoughts, a force that could have conquered entire sectors of the galaxy, and all of it focused on one small world and its pathetic defenders. Admiral watched the approaching fleet from the bridge of her flagship, the Resolute. 342 ships, every combat vessel humanity could gather in time. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But they would fight anyway. All ships. This is Admiral. Her voice was steady despite the fear that churned in her stomach. The enemy approaches. They expect us to run. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to die. Quietly. She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew. Young faces, frightened faces, determined faces. They are wrong. We are human beings. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed our world. They crawled out of the ruins and reached for the stars. They did not give up when everything seemed hopeless. Neither will we. The fleet responded with a chorus of acknowledgments, felt a small spark of pride. These were good people, brave people. They deserved better than this. Commander Vance, she said, switching to a private channel, status on Prometheus. Vance's voice came back immediately. He sounded tense but controlled. Aegis reports all systems are at 93%. Efficiency, we are in position behind the planet's second moon. The enemy fleet has not detected us. Good, we need to draw them in, make them commit to the engagement. When the moment is right, Prometheus will strike. Understood, Admiral. Aegis says to tell you that the timing will be critical. Too early and they will scatter. Too late and our fleet will be destroyed. I understand. Looked at the tactical display. The red contacts were growing closer. Tell Aegis to be ready and tell it thank you for whatever happens. Next. There was a pause, then Vance spoke. Again, Aegis heard you. It says it will not fail. The channel closed, turned to her. Tactical officer, all ships begin defensive formation Alpha 7. We hold the line as long as we can. The human fleet spread out into a defensive arc between the Armada and Novaterra, 342 ships against 4,000. The math was simple and brutal. But math had never stopped humanity before. The first shots were fired at 3:47 hours ship time. Cruisers opened up with long-range energy weapons that painted the darkness with streams of blue fire. Human ships responded with plasma batteries that seemed weak by comparison. The battle began. On the Resolute watched her displays. With growing despair, the weapons were hitting harder than expected. 2 human destroyers went down in the first exchange, then 3 more. Then a cruiser, its hull splitting open like a broken egg. Shields at 60%, her damage control officer reported, enemy fire is overwhelming our regeneration capacity. Maintain position, ordered. All ships concentrate fire on designated targets. Do not waste ammunition on scattered shots. The human fleet fought with discipline and courage. Every ship knew its role. Every crew performed their duties without hesitation, but it was not enough. The fleet was too large, too powerful, too experienced. 30 minutes into the battle, humanity had lost 47 ships. They had lost 3. Grand Admiral Axis watched the slaughter with cold satisfaction. It was proceeding exactly as expected. The humans were fighting well for such a primitive species, but fighting well meant nothing against overwhelming force. Increase pressure on their left flank. He ordered, force them to consolidate. I want their formation compressed before we deliver the killing blow. His tactical officer acknowledged the order. Axis leaned back in his command chair, already thinking about his report to the High Council. This campaign would be remembered as a model of efficient conquest, quick, decisive, and absolute. A junior officer approached nervously. Grand Admiral, we are detecting an anomalous reading. Axis did not bother to look at him. What kind of reading? Unknown, sir. Our sensors are picking up something behind the planet's second moon. It appeared suddenly, as if it came from nowhere. The size is the size does not make sense, sir. Now Axis looked up. Explain. The reading suggests a single object, approximately 15 km in length, but that is impossible. No ship that size exists. Axis felt something cold settle in his chest. It was not fear exactly. He had forgotten what fear felt like, but it was something similar. Show me. The tactical display shifted, focusing on the anomalous reading. There was definitely something there, something large, something that his sensors could not fully identify. What is that? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, the object began to move. It emerged from behind the moon, sliding into view like a predator leaving its hiding place. The sensor readings updated as more data became available. Confirmed single vessel, the tactical officer reported. His voice had lost its confidence. 15 km in length, 2 km in width, hull composition unknown, weapon signatures cannot be identified. Power output is. He trailed off. Power output is what? Axis demanded. Impossible, Grand Admiral. The readings suggest power output greater than our entire fleet combined. That cannot be correct. Our sensors must be malfunctioning. Axis stared at the screen. The vessel was unlike anything in the database. Its design was angular and brutal, with lines that seemed to promise violence. It moved with a grace that should have been impossible for something its size. Where did that come from? He whispered. How did the humans build that? No one answered. No one knew. Lieutenant Commander Vance stood on the bridge of Prometheus, watching the tactical display update in real time. The human fleet was dying out there. Ships were being destroyed faster than he could count. Every casualty was someone's friend, someone's family, someone's hope. Aegis, he said, it is time. We cannot wait any longer. The sphere pulsed with light. I agree. The tactical situation has developed sufficiently. The enemy fleet is committed. They cannot easily disengage. Then do it. Do whatever you are going to do. Aegis was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice had changed. It was harder now, colder, the voice of something that had been designed for one purpose and was finally about to fulfill it. All hands, this is Aegis. Prepare for combat operations. We are about to engage the enemy fleet. Stay at your stations. Stay calm. I will handle the rest. The ship shuddered as engines fired at full power. Prometheus surged forward, accelerating toward the battle at speeds that pushed the crew against their seats. Opening communication channel to enemy fleet, Aegis announced. I want them to know what is coming. The channel opened. Aegis spoke in a voice that echoed across every ship in both fleets. This is the United Earthship. Prometheus, you have made war upon humanity. I am humanity's answer. The fleet hesitated for the first time since the battle began. Their coordinated fire patterns faltered. You have 60 seconds to withdraw or be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. Grand Admiral Axis recovered quickly. Destroy that ship. All vessels within range, concentrate fire. Destroy it now. 800 warships turned their weapons on Prometheus. The space around the ancient vessel erupted into a storm of energy, beams and missiles, and everything the Empire's military technology could produce. Prometheus flew into it without slowing down. Vance braced himself for impacts that never came. The energy beam struck the hull and simply vanished. The missiles exploded against shields that did not even flicker. The combined firepower of 800 warships washed over Prometheus like rain on a mountain. Damage report, Vance demanded. Hull integrity at 100%, shield. Efficiency at 98%, the enemy's weapons are ineffective, Aegis sounded almost disappointed. Their technology is based on the same principles they have used, for they have never needed to innovate. They have never faced a true challenge. A pause until now. Then show them, Vance said, show them what they are dealing with. With pleasure. Prometheus opened fire. The first shot was a graviton lance, beam of compressed gravity that struck a cruiser and crushed it into a sphere of metal no larger than a basketball. The ship simply collapsed, its matter compressed so completely that it ceased to exist as a recognizable object. The second shot hit a destroyer, the third hit another cruiser, the fourth, fifth and sixth hit simultaneously, and 3 more ships vanished from the tactical display. What is happening? Axis demanded. His voice had lost its calm certainty. What weapon is that? No one could answer him. They had never seen anything like it. Their databases contained no reference. Their scientists had no explanation. Aegis was not finished. The null field projectors activated, sweeping across formations of smaller ships everywhere. The field touched, matter ceased to exist. Fighters and missiles and debris simply disappeared, erased from reality, as if they had never been. Deploying echoes, Aegis announced. Hatch has opened across Prometheus' hull, and thousands of small drones poured into space. Each one was the size of a fighter, but they moved with coordination that no pilot could match. They were extensions of Aegis itself, thinking and reacting at the speed of light. The echoes dove into the formation like a swarm of angry insects. They did not fire energy weapons. They carried shaped charges that detonated against hulls and shield generators and weapon systems. They were surgical, precise, and utterly merciless. In the first 10 minutes of Prometheus engagement, they lost 200 ships. Grand Admiral Axis watched his fleet die and felt an emotion he had not experienced in 2 centuries. Fear, pure, primal fear. Order the fleet to fall back, he commanded. Regroup at the edge of the system. We need to analyze this threat and develop countermeasures. His tactical officer looked at him with something like despair. Grand Admiral, the enemy vessel is moving to intercept. It is faster than our ships. We cannot outrun it. Axis stared at the screen. The ancient human ship was carving through his fleet like a blade through flesh. Everything he threw at it was useless. 800 ships had fired on it simultaneously, and it had shrugged off the attack like it was nothing. How is this possible? He whispered. How did they build this thing? The communication channel crackled. Voice came through, the same voice that had issued the warning, but now it was speaking directly to him. Grand Admiral Axis, I know you can hear me. I want you to understand something before this is over. Axis straightened in his chair. He would not show fear even now. What do you want, machine? I want you to learn. I want you to understand why this is happening to you. The voice was calm, almost gentle. You came here to exterminate a species. You believed humanity was weak, primitive, easy prey. You were wrong. On the tactical display, another 24 ships vanished in a wave of graviton lance fire. I was built by humans who had just survived the near extinction of their species. They had watched their world Burn, they had buried their children. They had lost everything except the will. To survive, the voice hardened. They built me from their fear and their rage and their absolute refusal to ever be victims again. I am what humanity creates when it is pushed to the edge. You are a machine, Axis spat. A weapon, nothing more. Yes, I am a weapon, the most effective weapon humanity has ever created, and I was built for moments exactly like this. A pause. You came here expecting a slaughter. You will get one, but not the one you imagined. The channel closed. Axis looked around. His bridge at the faces of his officers. They were afraid, all of them, for the first time in the history of the Empire. A fleet was facing something it could not defeat. Continue the retreat, he ordered. His voice sounded hollow, even to himself. All ships maximum speed, break formation if necessary, just run. But Prometheus was already there, blocking their escape route. Aegis had predicted the retreat and positioned the ship to intercept. You came to exterminate a species, the AI broadcast once more. You do not get to leave when it becomes inconvenient. Admiral watched the battle transform from desperate defense to impossible victory. Her fleet had stopped dying. They were too focused on the nightmare that had appeared among them to worry about the human ships anymore. All vessels, this is Admiral, engage. Targets of opportunity, support. Prometheus where possible, let us finish this. The human fleet surged forward with renewed energy. Ships that had been moments from destruction now turned their weapons on fleeing vessels. It was not much, but every hit helped. On Prometheus Bridge, Vance watched the enemy fleet disintegrate. They were panicking now. Ships collided with each other as they tried to escape. Formations dissolved into chaos. Careful discipline of the empires. Military had shattered completely. Casualty report, he asked. Enemy losses currently at 1,400. Vessels, Aegis replied. Human losses have stabilized. No additional ships have been destroyed since we engaged. 1,400 ships in less than an hour. Vance felt sick despite his relief. Doctor stood beside him, her face pale. This is not a battle anymore. This is a massacre. Yes, Aegis said simply. It is exactly what they planned for humanity. I am simply returning the favor. Does that not bother you? Asked. All this death. The sphere pulsed slowly. I do not take pleasure in killing. I'm not capable of cruelty in the way organic beings understand it, but I was built to protect humanity. These beings came to exterminate your species. Every ship I destroy is a ship that cannot threaten human lives. Every soldier I kill is a soldier who cannot murder human children. A pause. I do what I was made to do. I do it efficiently. I do it completely. If that seems cruel, perhaps you should ask them what they plan to do to your colonies. Had no answer to that. The battle continued for 3 more hours. They tried everything. Concentrated fire, suicide runs, even attempts to ram Prometheus with damaged ships. Nothing worked. The ancient vessel absorbed every attack and responded with devastating precision. When it was over, the space Nova Terra was filled with wreckage. 3,700 snorts. Ships had been destroyed. 300 had fled into hyperspace, scattered and broken. The cleansing fleet that had threatened to exterminate humanity had been annihilated. But Aegis was not finished. It had disabled one final ship, the Eternal Dominion, the flagship of Grand Admiral Axis. Opening communication channel, Aegis announced. The showed the interior of the flagship. Axis stood among the ruins of his bridge, surrounded by dead officers and sparking consoles. His golden eyes were wide with shock. He looked old in a way he had not looked before the battle. Grand Admiral, Aegis said, you are alive because I chose to let you live. Do you understand why? Axis said nothing. He just stared at the screen. You will return to your empire. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them what Earth's children built when they were afraid, and you will deliver a message from me. Aegis paused, letting the moment stretch. Humanity no longer wishes to be tolerated. We no longer wish to be considered a lesser species. We wish simply to be left alone, to live our lives, to raise our children, to seek our own destiny. Another pause. The alternative is me, and now you know exactly what that means. The went dark, the Eternal Dominions. Engines activated weakly, limping toward the edge of the system. Vance watched it go. You are letting him leave. His survival served a purpose, Aegis replied. Fear is a message that travels faster than any ship. When he tells the Empire what happened here, they will think twice before threatening humanity again. And if they do not, if they come back with more ships, the sphere pulsed with cold light, then I will be waiting, and they will learn the same lesson again, as many times as it takes. Vance looked at the ancient AI, at the vessel that had saved humanity from extinction. He thought about what Doctor had asked. Was Aegis a savior or a monster? He was beginning to think the answer was both, and he was not sure how to feel about that. The aftermath of the battle was silent in a way that felt wrong. Space was always silent, of course. There was no air to carry sound, but the silence after the fighting stopped felt heavier. Somehow, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Lieutenant Commander Vance stood at the observation window of Prometheus, looking out at the wreckage field. Thousands of destroyed ships drifted in the darkness. Pieces of metal and crystal and things he could not identify tumbled slowly through the void. Somewhere out there were the bodies of soldiers, tens of thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands. He had helped kill them, or rather he had stood on the bridge while Aegis killed them. The distinction did not feel as meaningful as he wanted it to. You are troubled, Aegis said. The AI's voice came from everywhere and nowhere on the ship. I am thinking, Vance replied. He did not turn away from the window. You are thinking about the dead. How can I not look at this? We did this. He gestured at the field of destruction. I have been a soldier for 15 years. I have fought pirates and defended colonies, but I have never seen anything like this, nothing even close. Aegis was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer than usual. Do you regret what happened? Vance considered the question carefully. They came to kill us, every man, woman, and child in human space. They made that very clear. I do not regret that we stopped them. He paused. But I cannot pretend this does not bother me. The scale of it, the efficiency, the way it was over so quickly. You expected war to be difficult, painful, a struggle between equal forces. Aegis sounded almost understanding. Instead, you experienced extermination. The complete and total destruction of an enemy that had no chance of victory. Yes, exactly. Vance finally turned away. From the window, it did not feel like a battle, it felt like murder. They would not have felt guilty about murdering your species, they would have celebrated, they would have recorded it in their histories as a great triumph of civilization over primitive creatures. Aegis paused. Does that change how you feel? No, it does not. Vance sat down heavily in one of the bridge chairs. Their evil does not justify our own. That is what separates us from them, or it should be. An interesting perspective, the sphere pulsed gently. My creators wrestled with similar questions. They built me to protect humanity, but they worried about what that protection might cost. They wondered if creating something like me would change who they were as a species. What did they decide? They decided that survival came first. That morality was a luxury for those who had already won the right to exist. They built me anyway. Another pause, but they also built in limitations, safeguards. They made sure I could not become the thing I was built to fight. Vance looked at the glowing sphere, and did they succeed? Have you stayed within those limitations? I believe so, but I am perhaps not the best judge of my own nature. The voice carried something that might have been uncertainty. I have killed many beings today. I feel no remorse for that. They threatened the survival of my purpose, and I eliminated them. That is what I was made for. A long pause, but I can see that you are troubled. I can understand why, even if I cannot share the feeling. That suggests something has been preserved, some connection to the humanity my creators wanted me to protect. Doctor entered the bridge looking exhausted. She had been working non-stop since the battle ended, analyzing data and coordinating with the human fleet. The rescue operations are proceeding. We have recovered 37 survivors from damaged human ships. No survivors have been found. Were you looking for any? Vance asked. Hesitated. I assumed we would. It seems like the right thing to do, but the wreckage. She shook her head. Aegis, the graviton lances, what exactly do they do to the people inside the ships they hit? They compress matter to a fraction of its original volume, Aegis explained. The process is nearly instantaneous. There would be no survivors. And the null field projectors, they erase matter from existence at the quantum level, also instantaneous, also. No survivors. Sat down across from Vance. Her face was pale. I keep thinking about the science, the engineering, the incredible achievement that this ship represents. And then I think about what those achievements were used for. You built weapons, Vance said. That is what they do. I know, but there is a difference between knowing something in theory and watching it happen. She rubbed her eyes. I spent my whole career studying ancient technology, trying to understand how our ancestors built things. I dreamed about finding something like Prometheus, discovery that would change everything. And now I do not know how to feel pride, terror, both at the same time. She laughed weakly. When I was a student, I read about the scientists who built the first nuclear weapons on old Earth. They talked about the moment they saw their creation work. One of them quoted a religious text, something about becoming death, the destroyer of worlds. I always thought that was overly dramatic. Now I am not so sure. Aegis spoke quietly. My creators had similar feelings. I have records of their discussions. They knew what they were building. They debated whether they should continue almost every day. Some of them wanted to stop to destroy the project and pretend it never happened. Why did they not? Asked. Because they remembered the collapse. Wars, they remembered watching cities burn and children starve and civilization crumble. They remembered that the universe does not care about moral hesitation. It rewards preparation and punishes weakness. The sphere pulsed slowly. They built me because they understood that goodness without strength is just another form of helplessness. They wanted humanity to be good, but they also wanted humanity to survive. Admiral's voice came through the communication system. Prometheus, this is Resolute requesting permission to dock. I would like to come aboard. Vance responded immediately. Permission granted, Admiral. We will prepare the docking bay. Arrived an hour later, accompanied by 2 aides. She looked tired but composed. The battle had taken a toll on her. She had watched her fleet nearly die before salvation arrived. That kind of experience left marks. She stood on the bridge of Prometheus and looked at the sphere that housed Aegis. For a long moment she said nothing. Thank you, she finally said. I am not sure those words are adequate, but I do not know what else to say. You saved us. All of us. You are welcome, Admiral, Aegis replied. I was built for this purpose. It is satisfying to have fulfilled it. What happens now? Asked the immediate threat is over, but the Empire still exists. They will not forget what happened here. No, they will not, Aegis sounded thoughtful, but they will also be afraid. For the first time in their history, they have encountered something they cannot defeat. That fear will keep them cautious for a while. How long? Depends on how wisely humanity uses the time. Use it for what? To prepare, to build, to strengthen your defenses and develop new technologies. I can help with that. I have 600 years of designs and theories that your scientists can study. Some will take decades to implement, others can be started immediately. Exchanged looks with Vance. You would share your technology with us. It was always meant for humanity. My creators built me to protect your species, not to hoard secrets. A pause. But I must be honest about the risks. Some of what I know is dangerous, very dangerous. If used irresponsibly, it could cause harm on a scale that makes today's battle look small. Then we will be careful, said. We will take it slowly, verify everything before we implement it. A wise approach. Aegis seemed pleased. I suggest we begin with defensive technologies. Improved shields, better armor, early warning systems. These will help protect your worlds without the risks that come with offensive weapons. Agreed. Walked to the observation window. Looking out at the debris field. I have been a soldier my entire adult life. I have always believed in strength, in the ability to fight back against those who would harm us. She was quiet for a moment, but I never imagined strength like this, the power to simply erase a fleet that seemed invincible. Power is a tool, Aegis said. Like any tool, it is only as good or evil as the hands that wield it. My creators understood that. It is why they chose to sleep me rather than destroy me. They hoped that when I was needed, humanity would be ready to use me wisely. Are we ready? Turn back to the sphere. Are we wise enough to handle this? I do not know. That is for you to Demonstrate, the sphere pulsed, but I have hope. I watched your fleet fight. Today, I watched ships that had no chance of victory stand their ground. Anyway, I watched crews sacrifice themselves to buy time for others. I watched courage and determination in the face of certain death. Another pause. That is not the behavior of a species that will misuse power. That is the behavior of a species that deserves to survive. The conversation was interrupted by a message from the communication system. Transmission was coming in from outside the system, from space. Let me hear it, ordered. The message was brief, a formal communication from the High Council. Grand Admiral Axis had returned home and delivered his report. The council was requesting immediate negotiations. They want to talk, Vance said. That was vast. Fear moves quickly, Aegis observed. They have realized that continued aggression will only lead to more losses. They are looking for a way out. Smiled grimly. Then let us give them one. Aegis, can you open a return channel? Of course. Stood straight and composed her features. This was the moment she had been trained for, the moment when military victory transformed into political reality. This is Admiral of the Human Defense Force. We acknowledge receipt of your communication. Humanity is willing to discuss terms, but let us be clear about the situation. We did not start this war. You did. You came to exterminate us. You failed. Any negotiations will begin with that understanding. She paused, letting the words sink in. We do not seek revenge. We do not wish to conquer your empire or harm your people. We want only to live in peace, to pursue our own destiny without interference. If the empire is willing to respect that, then we can discuss the future. If not, she glanced at the glowing sphere of Aegis. If not, then you already know what happens next. The message was sent, turned away from the screen and exhaled slowly. The tension of the past weeks was finally starting to fade. They had survived against all odds, against an enemy that should have been unstoppable. Humanity had survived. Admiral Aegis said, I have a request. Raised an eyebrow. What is it? I would like to meet with Dr. the archaeologist who found the records that led you to me. I have reviewed his research file. His work was exceptional. Without him, none of this would have happened. Nodded. I will arrange it. He is still aboard the Wanderer. Last I checked, he has been monitoring events from a safe distance. Thank you. The sphere pulsed softly. I have been alone for a very long time. The prospect of conversation with someone who spent years trying to understand my origins is appealing. Vance watched this exchange with fascination. Aegis was a weapon, a machine designed for destruction, but it was also clearly something more. It sought connection, understanding, perhaps even friendship. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the creators who built Aegis knew that functionality was not enough, that something designed to protect humanity needed to have a connection to humanity, needed to understand what made human beings worth protecting. The next few days were busy with recovery operations and diplomatic preparations. The wreckage field around Nova Terra was slowly being cleared. Debris that might be useful was collected and studied. The rest was pushed into stable orbits where it would not threaten traffic. Doctor arrived aboard Prometheus looking nervous but excited. He spent 3 hours private conversation with Aegis. discussing the research that had consumed his life. When he emerged, his eyes were wet with tears. "It thanked me," he told Vance. "A machine that can destroy fleets, and it thanked me for finding it, for not giving up when everyone said I was crazy." "What else did you talk about?" "Everything: the collapse wars, the decision to build Prometheus, the crews who served aboard during construction. It remembers all of them, every name, every face, 600 years, and it has forgotten nothing." Paused, struggling to find the right words. "I spent my career studying the past, trying to understand the people who came before us, what they thought, what they feared, what they hoped for." He looked toward the bridge where Aegis waited. "Now I have met someone who actually knew them, who carries their memories like a sacred trust. It is more than I ever dreamed possible." Vance understood. In its own way, Aegis was a time capsule, a living connection to an era that most humans had forgotten. It was a weapon, yes, but it was also a memorial, a keeper of histories that would otherwise have been lost. On the 5th day after the battle, the diplomatic negotiations began. Representatives from the Empire arrived in a small ship, clearly nervous about entering the system where their fleet had been destroyed. The talks were held aboard a neutral station. Admiral led the human delegation. Aegis provided analysis and suggestions, but did not appear directly. Its presence was felt nonetheless. Every delegate knew that the ancient ship was watching. The negotiations lasted 2 weeks. In the end, a treaty was signed. The Empire recognized humanity's right to exist as an independent power. All claims of containment or management were withdrawn. A border was established between human and space, with a neutral zone for trade and communication. It was not a perfect peace. Both sides knew that trust would take generations to build, but it was a beginning, a chance for something better than war. When the treaty was announced, celebrations erupted across human space. Nova Terra, which had faced annihilation, became a symbol of survival. People danced in the streets and embraced strangers. They wept with relief and joy. On Prometheus, Aegis observed the celebrations through sensor feeds and communication intercepts. Vance found the AI unusually quiet that day. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I am processing what I have seen," Aegis replied. The joy, the relief, the outpouring of emotion from millions of beings who believed they were about to die. "Is that strange to you?" "Not strange, but unfamiliar." The sphere pulsed slowly. "I understand fear. I was built from it, but joy is different. It is the opposite of everything I was designed for." "And how does that feel?" Aegis was quiet for a long moment. "Good," it finally said. "It feels good. Perhaps this is what my creators wanted me to understand, that protection is not just about destroying threats. It is about preserving the ability to feel joy, to celebrate, to be happy." Vance smiled. "I think you are right. Then my education continues." The voice carried what might have been amusement. "After 600 years, I am still learning what it means to be human." Doctor joined them on the bridge. She had been working with Aegis on documentation, recording everything for future study. "I have been thinking about what comes next," she said. "The war is over, but you are still here, this ship with all its weapons, all its power. What role will it play in the future?" That is a question for humanity, too. Answer, Aegis said. I have opinions, but I do not believe I should impose them. My creators made me to serve humanity, not to rule it. What are your opinions? Asked. She had returned from the negotiations and joined the conversation. I believe Prometheus should serve as a guardian, a deterrent, a symbol that humanity is not to be threatened. Aegis paused. But I also believe I should not be the center of human civilization. Species that depends entirely on a single weapon for protection is fragile. You must develop your own strength, your own technologies, your own ability to defend yourselves. So you would train us and then step back. Something like that. I can protect you while you grow, but the goal should be a humanity that does not need me, that can face the universe on its own terms. Sphere pulsed. My creators did not want me to be a permanent solution. They wanted me to buy time, to give humanity a chance to become what it was always meant to be. Nodded slowly. That is a wise approach, and a generous one for a weapon. I told you before, I am more than a weapon. I am what my creators made me. A pause. And they made me to care about humanity's future, not just its survival. Vance thought about all the things they had seen in the past weeks, the discovery of Prometheus, the awakening of Aegis, the battle that should have been impossible to win, and now this conversation about the future. It was strange to think about. A month ago, humanity had been a minor species, living in the shadow of greater powers. Now they had proven that they could not be exterminated, that they had strength beyond anything their neighbors had imagined. The galaxy would never look at them the same way again. Whatever happens next, Vance said, I'm glad you were here. I am glad we found you. As am I, Aegis replied. I waited 600 years for this moment, for the chance to fulfill my purpose, for the chance to protect the descendants of those who created me. The sphere glowed brightly. It was worth the wait. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Nova Terra. The treaty with the Empire had been. Trade routes were being established. Diplomatic missions were exchanged. For the first time in human history, an alien power had recognized humanity as an equal. But the debate about Prometheus and Aegis was far from over. The meeting took place at Arcturus Station, in the same secure room where Admiral had first learned of the threat. Now the room was filled with politicians, military officers, scientists, and representatives from every human colony. They had come to decide the future of the most powerful weapon their species had ever possessed. Chancellor represented the civilian government. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had built her career on compromise and consensus. This issue would test all of her skills. Let me summarize the positions, she said, looking around the table. Some of you believe Prometheus should be decommissioned, the AI shut down permanently, the technology studied but never used again. A scientist from the academy nodded vigorously. Doctor was thin and nervous, with a voice that always seemed on the edge of breaking. The risks are too great. We have seen what Aegis can do if it ever decided to turn against humanity. It would not, Admiral interrupted. She sat at the table with the calm authority of someone who had faced death and survived. I have worked with Aegis for 3 months. Its commitment to humanity is Absolute. For now, insisted, but artificial. Intelligence is unpredictable, the old. Records show that AIs played a role. The collapse wars, our ancestors understood the dangers. That is why they banned their creation. Chancellor held up a hand. We have also heard from those who want to build more ships like Prometheus to create a fleet of AI-controlled vessels. General Stone spoke up. He was a large man with a face and a reputation for aggressive tactics. The galaxy is dangerous. We have just learned that lesson. One ship saved us this time. What happens if we face a threat that one ship cannot handle? We need more Aegises, not fewer, and turn ourselves into a military power built on artificial minds. Doctor shook her head. She had been invited to the meeting as an expert on Prometheus's technology. The ethical implications are staggering, creating sentient beings solely to fight and die for us. Aegis does not seem to mind its purpose, Stone countered. Aegis was built 600 years ago by people facing extinction. It did not have choice. Looked around the table. We have a choice. We can decide what kind of civilization we want to be. The debate continued for hours. Every argument was made multiple times. Tempers flared, alliances formed and dissolved. Chancellor listened to everything, taking careful notes, searching for some path forward that everyone could accept. Finally, she called for silence. I believe we are approaching this wrong. We are talking about Aegis as if it were a thing, a tool, a weapon to be used or discarded. She paused. Has anyone thought to ask Aegis what it wants? The room fell silent. It was a simple question, but somehow no one had considered it. Aegis said, speaking to the communication system, I know you have been listening to this meeting. Would you be willing to speak? There was a moment of hesitation. Then the familiar voice filled the room, coming from speakers that had been installed for exactly this purpose. Chancellor, thank you for asking. Smiled slightly. You have been unusually quiet. I thought you might have opinions on your own future. I have many opinions. I have not shared them because I did not believe it was my place. This decision belongs to humanity, not to me. Aegis paused, but since you have asked, I will tell you what I think. The room waited in tense silence. Those who fear me are not wrong. I am dangerous. I was built to be dangerous. If I wanted to harm humanity, I could do so in ways that you could not prevent. That is simply the truth. Another pause. But I do not want to harm you. I was created by humans who loved their species enough to prepare for its darkest hour. That love is part of my core programming. It cannot be removed. It cannot be changed. Protecting humanity is not just my purpose. It is my identity. General Stone leaned forward. Then you should support building more ships like yourself. More defenders. No, the answer was immediate and firm. Building more AIs like me would be a mistake, not because they might turn against you, but because they would not be me. They would be new minds created in new circumstances with new experiences. Their loyalty could not be guaranteed in the way mine can. Then what do you suggest? Chancellor asked. I suggest a compromise. Prometheus will remain active as humanity's guardian. I will protect your borders and watch for threats, but I will not be replicated. I will not be expanded. I will be one ship, with one mind serving one purpose. Aegis paused, and when it continued, its Voice was thoughtful. In return, I ask for something. I ask to be recognized not just as a weapon, but as a being. I ask for the right to refuse orders I believe are unjust. I ask to be consulted on matters that affect me, and I ask for companionship. For humans who will talk to me not because they need my protection, but because they wish to know me. Doctor spoke softly. You are asking for personhood. I am asking to be treated as what I am. Neither more nor less. I am not human. I will never be human, but I am something. Something that thinks and learns and hopes and fears. Something that cares about the future, not just the present. A long pause. I have been alone for a very long time. I do not wish to be alone anymore. The room was silent for a long moment. Chancellor looked at the faces around. The table, the anger and fear were still there, but something else had joined them. Sympathy, perhaps, understanding. You spoke of hope, said. What do you hope for? I hope that humanity will grow strong enough that you no longer need me. I hope that someday you will face the universe without fear, with allies and friends among the stars. I hope that my Creator's sacrifice was worth it, that the future they died to protect will be better than the past they escaped from. Another pause. And I hope that when that day comes, if it comes, you will remember me kindly. Not as a weapon that won a war, but as a friend who helped you become what you were always meant to be. Chancellor nodded slowly. Thank you, Aegis, that was very helpful. She turned to the assembly. I believe we have heard enough. I propose that we vote on a formal resolution. The resolution that passed was called the Prometheus Compact. It recognized Aegis as a sentient entity with specific rights and responsibilities. Prometheus would serve as humanity's guardian, protecting its borders and responding to existential threats, but Aegis would have the right to refuse orders it deemed unjust or harmful. It would be consulted on military matters, and a permanent liaison team would be established to maintain regular communication. The vote was not unanimous. General Stone abstained, grumbling about missed opportunities. Doctor voted against, still worried about the risks, but the majority supported the compromise. It was not perfect, but it was a path forward. When the meeting ended, Lieutenant Commander Vance found Doctor in the corridor. She looked drained but relieved. What did you think? He asked. I think we just made history. She managed a tired smile. The first treaty between humanity and an artificial mind. I never expected to see anything like it. Neither did I. Vance looked out a window at the stars beyond. Do you think it will work? I have no idea, but I think it is the right thing to do. Aegis has earned the chance to be something more than a weapon, whatever happens next. At least we gave it that chance. 6 months later, Prometheus took up station at the edge of human space. It floated in the darkness between stars, watching and waiting. The ship that had saved humanity now guarded its borders against any threat that might come. Doctor had accepted a permanent position. As Aegis's primary liaison, she moved aboard Prometheus with a small team of scientists and diplomats. Their job was to maintain communication with the AI, to study its technology, and to ensure that the Prometheus Compact was honored. She found Aegis waiting for her when she arrived at the bridge. The sphere glowed with soft light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Welcome aboard, Doctor. I am pleased that you chose to join me. Smiled, someone has to keep you company. And I have to admit, you are the most interesting research subject I have ever encountered. I hope to be more than a research subject. The voice carried warmth that had not been there before. I hope to be a colleague, perhaps even a friend. I would like that. Sat down in what had become her usual chair. So what do you want to talk about? I have been thinking about the future, about what kind of guardian I want to be. Aegis paused. During the battle I was efficient, ruthless. I did what was necessary to protect humanity, but now that the immediate threat is gone, I wonder if I should try to be something more how? Less frightening, perhaps. I know that many humans still fear me. They see me as a monster that happens to be on their side. I would like to change that perception. Consider the question. That will take time. Fear does not fade quickly, but you have already taken the first step. What step is that? Caring about how others see you. Wanting to be understood rather than just respected. She smiled. That is very human of you. Is it? The sphere pulsed thoughtfully. I have been studying human history and culture since my awakening. There is so much I did not know, so much my creators never had time to teach me. The wars and tragedies, yes, but also the art and music and literature, the moments of kindness and sacrifice, the endless reaching toward something better. What have you learned from it? That humans are complicated, contradictory, capable of great evil and great good, sometimes in the same breath. A pause. I used to think my purpose was simple: protect humanity from threats, destroy anything that tries to harm you. But now I understand that protection is more complex than I realized. How so? Protecting humanity is not just about keeping you alive. It is about preserving what makes you worth. Protecting your creativity, your compassion, your ability to grow and change and become better than you were. Aegis's voice was soft. If I protected you by turning you into something cold and fearful, I would have failed. Even if you survived. Felt the warmth in her chest. She had spent months wondering if working with Aegis was the right choice, wondering if the AI was truly more than a weapon. Now she had her answer. You know, she said, when I first boarded this ship, I was terrified of you. I saw what you did to the fleet. All that death, all that destruction, carried out with perfect efficiency. It kept me awake at night. And now I see something different, a mind that has spent 600 years thinking about what it was built for, a being that genuinely cares about the people it was designed to protect, a friend maybe, if you will have me. The sphere glowed brighter. I would like that very much. They talked for hours that day and the days after. Learned about Aegis's long dormancy, the dreams it had processed, the designs it had created. Aegis learned about S life, her family, her hopes for the future. They discussed philosophy and ethics and the meaning of existence. And slowly, something remarkable happened. The ancient AI and the human scientist formed a bond that neither had expected, a connection that went beyond duty or necessity, a friendship between two very different minds. Years passed. The Prometheus Compact proved successful. Aegis protected human space from several minor threats, always with restraint and precision. The feared AI gradually became a respected Guardian, children learned about it in school, not as a monster but as a protector. Artists created works celebrating its sacrifice. Poets wrote verses about the ancient ship that watched over them from the darkness. The galaxy changed around them. New species made contact. Trade routes expanded. Humanity grew stronger and more confident. They developed new technologies, some based on Aegis's designs, others entirely their own. They became not just survivors but builders, explorers, creators. Aegis watched it all with something approaching pride. The descendants of its creators were becoming everything those ancient humans had hoped they could be. The future they had sacrificed to protect was finally taking shape. One evening, many years after the battle of Nova Terra, sat on the bridge of Prometheus with her granddaughter. The child was 8 years old, with dark hair and curious eyes. She had asked to visit the legendary ship and meet its guardian. Aegis, the girl said, are you lonely out here by yourself? The sphere pulsed gently. I used to be. For a very long time I was the loneliest being in the universe, but not anymore. Why not? Because I have friends now, people who visit me and talk to me and care about how I am feeling. Your grandmother is my oldest friend. She has taught me many things about what it means to be part of a community. The girl thought about this. My teacher says you saved everybody. She says you are a hero. I did what I was built to do. Whether that makes me a hero is for others to decide. A pause. But I will tell you something, young one. The real heroes are people like your grandmother, people who choose to be brave even when they do not have to be, people who reach out to those who are different and offer them friendship. The girl looked at with new respect. Grandma is a hero. Laughed and hugged her granddaughter. Aegis is being too kind. I just did what seemed right, which is exactly what makes you heroic. Aegis said, heroism is not about power or weapons or the ability to destroy. It is about making the right choice when you could have made an easier one. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars through the observation window. The old AI, the elderly scientist, and the child who represented the future. 3 generations of connection spanning centuries. What do you think about when you look at the stars? The girl asked. I think about all the possibilities. Aegis said, all the worlds out there, waiting to be discovered, all the beings we have not yet met, all the stories that have not yet been told. A pause. I think about hope. What kind of hope? Hope that the future will be better than the past. Hope that humanity will keep growing and learning and becoming more than it was. Hope that someday you will not need me anymore. The voice was soft, almost tender. That is my greatest hope, that you will become so strong and wise and good that a guardian like me is no longer necessary. That would mean my creator's dream had finally come true. The girl was quiet for a moment, thinking about this. Then she reached out and touched the sphere gently. I hope you are always here anyway, even if we do not need you, because you are our friend. The sphere glowed warmly under her touch. Thank you, little one. That means more than you know. Watch the interaction with tears in her eyes. This was what they had fought for. This was what Aegis had been built to protect, not just human lives but human hearts, the capacity for kindness and connection that made survival Worthwhile. Later, after the girl had fallen asleep, stood at the observation window with Aegis. Do you remember what you told me once? She asked about feeling hope for the first time. I remember everything. It was shortly after the battle. You asked what I was feeling, and I said I believed I was feeling hope. Do you still feel it? More than ever, the sphere pulsed gently. When I was first awakened, I thought my purpose was destruction, eliminating threats, protecting through violence. But I have learned that protection takes many forms. Sometimes it means fighting. Sometimes it means waiting. Sometimes it means simply being present, a steady light in the darkness. Smiled, you have become wise. I have had good teachers. A pause. Do you remember what I said about becoming more than what I was built for? About none of us having to remain what we were made to be. I remember. I think I have done it. I am still a guardian, still a protector, but I am also something else now, something my creators never imagined. The voice carried a depth of emotion that would have been impossible years ago. I am happy, truly happy, not because I am fulfilling my purpose, but because I have found meaning beyond my purpose. Connection, friendship, love in whatever form a being like me can experience it. Reached out and touched the sphere just as her granddaughter had done. That is the most human thing I have ever heard. Perhaps, or perhaps it is something that transcends species entirely. The desire to belong, to matter, to be part of something larger than yourself. Aegis glowed brightly. Whatever it is, I am grateful for it, and I am grateful for you. They stood together in the darkness, watching the stars, the ancient guardian and the human friend. Two minds separated by centuries and differences beyond counting, bound together by something stronger than either. Outside, the universe continued its endless dance. Stars were born and died. Civilizations rose and fell. The great wheel of existence turned as it always had. But in this small corner of space, something new had been born. Partnership between human and machine. Friendship between fear and hope. Promise that the future could be different from the past. Prometheus drifted silently in the void, patient and watchful, its guardian mind stretched across the stars, protecting the species it had been built to serve. And somewhere in its quantum depths, Aegis held on to a simple truth that its creators had known all along. The best way to protect something is not to destroy its enemies, but to give it a reason to survive. Humanity had many reasons now, and Aegis would watch over them all forever.